Hello and welcome to our demo on one-point perspective. In this short demo, we're going to be talking about finding a vanishing point when we're drawing from life. We're also going to be talking about the progress post that's going to be due soon. So in our lecture about one-point perspective, we had an exercise where we did this. We got out a ruler, hopefully. We made a horizon line on a piece of paper. We added a vanishing point, and we started to draw objects going back into space, receding back to that vanishing point. So maybe you drew some houses. I'm kind of doing a little refresher here. I'm drawing some different geometric like shapes. So I'm drawing some kind of parallelogram looking things. They could be a little bit more square, but they're going back into space and they're receding. So if we have an object where we can see the top, it's below that horizon line. If there's an object where we can see the bottom, it's going to be above that horizon line. I'm going to draw that here in 1 second. So this demo, we're going to be talking more about how to draw things from life. How do we use one-point perspective to draw a room, to draw a real space, not an imagined space. So I think we got that down. I think we got a good understanding how we can do stuff from imagination. Let's talk about sighting, measuring in real life. So we're going to look around, we're going to try to find some location that we feel like is interesting that we're going to want to draw a one-point perspective drawing of outside of class. So we're doing this for that larger project. So one of the first things we need to do is once we find that location, maybe it's in your dorm, maybe it's a hallway, maybe you come to the art building outside of hours and set up. We need to think about when we're setting up, do we have a good clear view of one-point perspective? And where is our eye level? Sometimes people do these drawings and they look like they're floating. Like this image looks like a person's floating. You probably won't have that in your image unless you're sitting on top of a cabinet or something. You could, for dramatic effect, lay on the ground and do the drawing. But usually our eye level is just going to be a little bit above the center of the page because we're going to be like sitting in a chair and drawing. So that's one of the first things we need to think. Once we find our location, try and think about our eye level. And then I'm going to have some steps about how we're going to go about finding our vanishing point and measuring out the room. So I'm going to show how I would go about finding the vanishing point for a room like this. So I went up into printmaking and I took this photo. It's not the greatest looking composition, but we have a foreground, middle ground, background, and it will work well for one-point perspective. So definitely, arrange things, think about how can you make an interesting sense of space. So I have this composition that I'm going to work with, and I'm going to make some marks on the image. So the first thing I need to figure out is where is my vanishing point? And I'm going to use that clock method where I'm going to find maybe a side of a table, maybe a part of a wall, a really dominant line that's going back into space. I'm going to use that clock method to find the relative angle as it goes back into space. So I went and found that angle. I could mark this on a piece of paper, but I'm just going to do everything on the photograph for you. So once I find one, I'm going to go try to find another angle that intersects. So I went onto this old beat up light table and I made an angle there, and you can see that it goes because it's receding back to that same spot and intersecting around there. So just using that clock method to find those relative angles. So that's where my vanishing point is going to be at, where those two areas intersect. And there is where I'd probably go about making my horizon line. And I can see below my horizon line, I can see the tops of things. And above my horizon line, I can't see the tops of things. And I can start to see how lines above the horizon line go down to that vanishing point, and lines below it go up to it. So I could start to figure out other lines within that composition. But one thing you're going to have to really do is once you kind of figure out where you want to place your horizon line on your piece of paper, roughly where that vanishing point is going to be at, this drawing is going to take a lot of sighting. So you're going to have to go find a basic unit, something that's really easy to kind of work with. You're going to be doing some measuring. You know, how tall is this filing cabinet thing versus this other one? How far away is this desk from this desk? So there's going to be quite a bit of site measuring that you're going to have to do. So for this progress checkpoint, we're going to go find some place that we want to draw. We're going to go find a good location for a 1-point perspective. So it could be our bedroom, it could be a hallway, but our composition has to have a minimum of 6 objects. So go look over those different requirements for that 1-point perspective. It should be the slide right before this, or the page right before this on Canvas. Our drawings need to have a foreground, middle ground, and background. So we're going to go hunt for a good composition. We're going to photograph exactly how we want to draw it. And then we're going to spend some time drawing out in graphite where our horizon line is. We're going to use relative angles, that clock method, and try to figure out where our vanishing point's at. And we're going to be doing sighting to kind of figure out where basic objects are at. So I would say get a good solid graphite drawing where we start to understand where the basic objects are at, so I can go check proportions. And we're going to be turning a photo of our composition and a photo of our graphite drawing in for feedback. And I'll give you feedback on that. We might have to go change some things due to composition issues, or we might have to change some things due to things need to be cited better. And then once we get those fixed, then you can start to ink your drawings. And remember, we're going to be turning in one drawing down the road, and it's going to look kind of like this, where it's going to be inked. It's going to have a 1-point perspective. It's going to have at least 6 objects in there. And I've okayed the composition, and I've okayed the proportions. Okay, so do that, and I will be giving you feedback shortly.